What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto abuses shadow clone training method? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. After nearly 13 long years of work it was almost done. Leaning back in his chair the tired Hokage turned his attention to the picture on his desk. While he had dreamed of this moment for so long he had doubts about its completion. When he finished his work it would be a seal more complex and far superior to even the Hiraishin. Just then the door to his office burst open and several shinobi came in all at once. "Hokage-sama," was the collected chorus. "One at a time and please stop that synchronized speaking. It is very disconcerting. Team 7 has returned," the first shinobi announced. "Your point is exactly? I expected them to return from their C-ranked mission today. They failed the mission and both the Uchiha and Hitomi are in critical condition." The doctors, the shinobi never finished as the Hokage disappeared in a flash of yellow. Reappearing at the side of two young shinobi he turned his attention to the others in the hospital room. "Minato, Kushina, what happened? We were ambushed and then the client turned and attacked as well. It was a setup. They were Iwagakure nins. All of them were at least Jonin or higher and they brought back up. It looked like they were all heading into battle with an enemy army." Kushina growled. "Of course they were. Sensei was there. They needed an army to take him down. Don't you see, Kushina? In order to get Sensei like this they needed all of those nins and they did not even live to report their failure." Minato shouted angrily. "Minato, don't yell at your sister. She is just as upset as you are. Now what happened to Hitomi?" "Sorry Dad," they both chorused looking down. "For what?" "Well, when they initially attacked we moved away but Hitomi froze and we didn't notice. I know you told us to protect her." "I'm sorry we didn't," Minato whispered. Kushina then broke into tears. "Are you mad?" "No, not at you," he sighed. Just then the Jonin's eyes slowly opened. "Where am I? Konoha. It seems like Kushina and Minato managed to drag you and Hitomi home by themselves." "Sorry Dobi, I tried to protect them, but against that kind of force and over 3/4 of my chakra sealed I couldn't get to them fast enough. Teme, I told them when you came back that the sealing of your chakra would only be a liability. Of course they wouldn't listen to me. If you could have used your Sharingans, Susanoo could have protected the Genins while you fought more effectively. Of course no one listens to me." Sasuke chuckled. Naruto always knew how to make someone realize the lame arguments that they made while insulting someone entirely unrelated to the conversation. "Is it done?" That got the attention of both the depressed children. "Almost another week at most. Although, now that it is almost done I am not sure if I want to use it. What if I never have Hitomi, Minato or Kushina?" "You sound desperate Dobi. That's not like you. You'll have them again. You just need to move faster and not be so dense this time." But Teme, before he could finish the shinobi he had left behind burst through his door with exasperated expressions. "Hokage-sama, why do you always take off like that?" "'Cause I can." The room suddenly burst into hysterical laughter. "Iwagakure has a force moving in this direction. It's not small either, not like last time. I think they are serious this time." Pinching the bridge of his nose, Naruto could feel the headache coming. "Kumogakure is heading this way as well. They have no intention of letting up. Hokage-sama, the Raikage is leading the charge personally." "Hokage-sama," a doctor said from the doorway. Turning, Naruto took one look at his face and knew what he was about to say. It was the same look they had when his triplets were born. "Hitomi isn't going to make it through the night. I'm sorry. If only Tsunade were here." It was then that the two younger shinobi broke into tears. "Do it Dobi. There is enough time before they get here. Finish it. Stop this endless cycle." "What of Tsunagakure? Have they considered my proposal?" The Kage sends his deepest sympathy but says that he can't and won't get involved. "What of Kirigakure? Well, to quote the Mizukage, tell him to shove his request for aid up his ass." End quote. Sighing he looked away. Ever since Danzo's crimes were publicly aired he had lost all treaties and allies. None of the countries had been willing to sign again and thus Konoha stood alone in the war. Luckily for Konoha, while they would not help him, they refused to help them as well. "I don't know what to do." Naruto sounded defeated. Looking away Sasuke flinched at the defeated tone that Naruto had. 14 years ago when the Fourth War was ending, Kumo and Iwa had betrayed the alliance and launched an all-out assault on Konohagakure. It was at that point that Konoha's dirty laundry came out into the open. It was also the point when Konoha was left alone. Itachi had tried so hard to prevent wars, and now that was all there was. Tsunade had been killed trying to prevent the enemy forces from entering one of their medical camps. While that delayed the inevitable, it had not deterred the enemy. It was then that Naruto managed to push them back using the Kyuubi's chakra. He had been made Rokudame after it was discovered that all the other candidates were no longer among the living. He and Hinata had gotten married, and 9 months later they were already starting their family. It was a happy occasion. Then it became a nightmare for Naruto. Hinata had begun to hemorrhage during the delivery. Despite the best efforts of the doctors, she died just after Hitomi, the youngest of the triplets, had been born. Despite his loss, Naruto had tried his hardest at raising the family that Hinata had died giving him. Many women threw themselves at him trying to gain his favor. Naturally, marrying the Hokage had many perks. However, Naruto could see through them all, and none of them had their way. Of course, this made many of the women angry, but the most affected was Sakura. After trying unsuccessfully to marry Sasuke, she had tried to marry Naruto, especially after his lineage had been released to the public. Apparently, something as simple as his parents' identity made Naruto a god. Sakura had taken the rejection hard and actually attempted to assassinate Hitomi and her siblings while they were only a year old. She had been stopped, arrested, and tried for treason. When the sentencing came, everyone, especially Sakura, had expected Naruto to be lenient since she had been a friend. They were proven wrong as Naruto ordered her to be publicly executed for her crimes. The idea that Naruto would have little to no patience for those who attacked his family made a very loud statement, and many of the girls backed away. "Dobi, if you do not do that jutsu, I will never forgive you. We spent years on that technique. We combined every ounce of knowledge we could find into that thing. Everything I learned from Itachi, Orochimaru, and Obito. You poured everything from your endless imagination. The scrolls left behind by Jiraiya, Tsunade's personal scrolls, your father's scrolls, and inventions of your own. I have never known you to give up, so why are you?" Sasuke scolded. Naruto's head fell further and Sasuke cursed. Struggling to sit up, he attempted vainly to get out of bed. "Teme, what so you think you are doing?" Naruto yelled. "If you won't do it, then I will. Get out of the way," he growled. Shaking his head, Minato pushed his wounded sensei back to the bed and turned to look at his father. "Let's ask Hitomi what she wants." "Okay," he tried to reason. After a few minutes, he nodded and headed into the dying girl's room. Kneeling down next to the bed, Naruto gave a soft smile to the shy girl. "How are you doing, sweetheart?" "I'm sorry," she whimpered. Shaking his head, Naruto brushed the tears away. "I froze when my first C-ranked mission went wrong, do you know? The only difference is that no one was trying to wipe Konoha off of the map then. It is nothing to be ashamed of. I am almost done with the jutsu I have been working on, remember? Of course. You said that you would go save Mom and that we would be able to meet her when you were done. I am worried that I might not be able to see you again if I do it. What if Hinata and I don't like each other and I never get to see you again?" Naruto had never been one to confess his fears to his children, but he needed her support. "Do it anyway. What if you save Konoha, stop the war, save Mom, and get us all at the same time?" she suggested. "You will never know until you try. You told me that when I was trying to learn the Juken." "Okay, sweetie. Get some sleep. I will see you when you wake up, okay?" Naruto tried to keep his voice from cracking. He knew that she would not be waking up in this time. As she nodded and closed her eyes, he suppressed a sorrow-filled cry as she took her last breath. Standing, he knew what he was going to do and knew that he couldn't do it alone. "Teme, if I take you with me, will you help me change things?" he said in the doorway, startling the injured Jonin. "Anything, Hokage-sama," he confirmed. They knew at that moment that there was no turning back, and as predicted, it did not take long before the jutsu was finished. By the end of the week, Sasuke was just able to stand, and they had set the formula that was needed in the center of the village. It was no secret what they were about to do. Having needed to further their knowledge, they had approached every shinobi for assistance, and thus the village was preparing a defensive barrier around them in case the attack started before they were finished. "Are they safe, Konohamaru?" "Yeah." Gaara agreed to take them in even if he wouldn't help us. "It is kind of sad though that they can't see that you have no desire to repeat past mistakes and intend to make amends for Danzo's actions. It isn't just Danzo, Konohamaru. When they discovered that Tobi was in fact Obito Uchiha, they felt an even bigger hatred for the village. Konoha had produced so many nins that had led the world to the war that they lost all faith in not the village, but the nins of the village. I hope that I can prevent that from happening. It's time, Naruto said, standing as he and Sasuke nodded. As the villagers cleared from the center of the sealing formula, Sasuke and Naruto began a long complex string of over 500 hand seals apiece. The jutsu was very unique and required synchronicity. Teaching Sasuke the hand seals alone in a week while finishing the technique had been nearly impossible. Thankfully, he had proven that he was a genius and had managed to remember them all without the use of his Sharingans. Just as the last 20 seals were being performed, the gates exploded and the village was flooded with enemy shinobi. Forcing himself to ignore his surroundings, Naruto continued the jutsu. It was hard for him because every nerve in his body was demanding that he stop and protect his village. Sasuke, on the other hand, was also fighting against himself, but for different reasons. He was exhausted. He had refused to sleep the past week so that he could learn the technique. Having Naruto ask him for help had been something that he had never expected. After everything that he had done to the blonde enigma, he had thought that teaching and protecting his family was the best that he could do. Then after he had failed to protect the youngest of the three, he had thought that Naruto had lost his trust in the Uchiha. He hadn't wanted to disappoint Naruto again and fought tooth and nail to learn the technique in time. Just as the Raikage stepped through the village gates, he and the Tsuchikage froze at seeing the formula elaborately painted on the ground and the two most feared shinobi inside finishing the last of the hand seals. "What do you think that you are doing?" the Raikage demanded, not expecting an answer. Turning as the last seal finished, Naruto grinned. "See you later. Don't think about researching the seal, it will be destroyed in 30 seconds. Demonic release. Tenmei, Unmei no Gyakuten." As the words came from Naruto's mouth, everyone in the village, enemy and ally alike, jaws dropped as they stared in fascination. The seal had begun to glow, and almost simultaneously the seals on Sasuke's Sharingans and chakra, as well as Naruto's Shikafuin and 8 tetragram seal, shattered. As the chakra exploded outwards, their bodies began to disintegrate and a mass of energy began to rise in the air. Then, a bright flash of light emitted from the sealing formula and the seal. The light and the two shinobi were gone. The shinobi of Konoha could only hope that they would be saved from their foolishness. "What hit me?" Naruto groaned as he sat up, holding his head. "That would be the jutsu that you used to bring yourself to the past, Kit." The Kyuubi retorted. Shakily standing, Naruto cursed as he saw the date. "Lovely final exams. I have a pounding migraine, no idea of how well I am going to work in my younger, weaker body, and no plan on how I should go about this now that I know what to expect." "Well, that would be your fault for not planning ahead of time." "I couldn't plan ahead. I had no idea where the jutsu would send me. All I know is that it would be a time where I existed and that would be able to handle the memories and chakra coming back with me." "I can still use your chakra, right? Or am I going to have to work up to that again?" "I will be able to tell you more when you are at full strength. By the way, at this rate you are going to be late." "No fair," Naruto yelled as he ran, as best as he could, out of his apartment and towards the school. Mentally he prayed that Sasuke was having a much better time than he was. Across the village another lone figure was sitting up, rubbing at the back of his head, groaning. "It worked. Good. Where am I? Oh, my training field. Judging by the positioning of the shuriken over there and the equipment I have on me, I am somewhere near the academy graduation." Sasuke worked out while massaging his head. After a second he smiled at himself. He had managed to perfect his timing and the jutsu to pull it off. Wincing, he glanced at the sun's position. He cursed. He was going to be late. "Well, I suppose if I need to I can take advantage of my near godlike status that they have given me. This is going to take some time to adjust to. I should get to the academy. I'll try and work some of the specifics out at lunch with the Hokage." Freezing in mid-step, Sasuke cursed. "I am going to have to make sure that I don't say that to him." Naruto and Sasuke actually met halfway to the academy. They only needed to take one glance at each other before they knew that the other was suffering from the same migraine. Snickering, they sped up and started to race to the academy. Their rivalry had been reignited somewhat. Bursting through the door, they both gave sheepish looks at Iruka and Mizuki. "Sorry, Iruka-sensei. I was helping the dobi with his aim. I can't say if it has improved any though." Sasuke quickly explained, knowing that Naruto would pick up on the excuse to keep him out of trouble. Hey, watch it, Teme. I was doing pretty well until you startled me by yelling that we were going to be late. Besides, who gets up at 4 in the morning to practice kunai and shuriken anyway? Naruto huffed in a manner that was befitting of his younger days. Shaking his head, Iruka groaned. Take your seats, but do try to be more mindful of the time next time. He lectured, getting a nod from both of the boys. Alright, now that everyone is here, we can start the final exam. This exam will be held in several parts. The first will be a test of your academic knowledge. This will test if you have been paying attention to my lectures over the years. Following that will be accuracy. You will be tested on your kunai and shuriken technique. Following that will be a test of your taijutsu. This will be a tournament-style test in which you will spar with each other. Your performance will be watched carefully and you will be graded based on your performance. Your parents have been invited to watch the tournament as well, so try not to goof around. We will break for lunch after that. Immediately after lunch has ended, you will be tested on genjutsu and finally ninjutsu. Any questions? Iruka-sensei, does the winner of the tournament get extra credit for winning or no? One civilian-born student asked. No, the winner will not receive extra credit for winning the tournament. Dang, no more questions? Good, we will begin then. Kyuubi, is there any way that I can talk to Sasuke mentally? I need to ask him something, and drawing a seal or using Enbu hand seals would be too noticeable. I can try to establish a link between his Sharingans and you. Thanks. Meanwhile, Sasuke was breezing through the written exam. It had been easy the first time and even easier the second time. Sasuke? Hokage-sama? You know I don't like it when you call me that. Besides, you are going to have to get used to not calling me that. I know that. I'm trying. Did you need something? I won't help you with the test if that's what you want. Damn it, Teme. Do you think that I should fail like I did last time and have the same team, or do I try and risk us being separated? Good question. If you fail, you will have to work harder to keep any improvements in your ability to a reasonable growth, which may hinder our mission. At the same time, not being on the same team would hinder it as well. I say follow your instincts, they have never been wrong before. Thanks, Teme. The written ended more quickly than Naruto remembered, but maybe that was because he wasn't as nervous. As they headed outside and lined up for their accuracy test, Naruto yawned. So we will go with the whole "I was hiding my real ability to keep me safe" ploy? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Besides, I technically laid the groundwork for that when I said that we had been training this morning. Good point. Sasuke, thanks for coming with me. It's the least that I can do for you, Dobi. After all of the problems that I caused, I am just trying to make up for my mistakes, you know that, right? You already did, Teme. You almost died saving my children. You have dedicated every waking moment since your return to helping me in the village. And you agreed to come back to a time when your demons were still alive. There is nothing to repent for. Maybe not in your eyes, Dobi, but there is plenty in mine. As Naruto stepped up to the line, he tested the weight of the kunai and shuriken, noting that they felt much heavier than they should. Teme Mizuki is trying to rig the exams. I may need some help. If I even want a chance getting these to the target, I'm going to have to use my chakra to enhance my throw. I'll cover if needed, just try not to use too much. I'll try, but you know that I have control issues at this age. Issues? Try none. Naruto pouted and threw the kunai with as little chakra as he could. Luckily, the kunai and shuriken just got embedded deeper than normal. Everyone in the courtyard gasped. The dead last had just gotten a perfect score when he was usually lucky to hit half. Huh, would you look at that? He did improve. Sasuke mocked playfully. I told you I did. Naruto fired back in jest. The accuracy test ended much like it had the first time. Then it was the tournament. Glancing around, Naruto and Sasuke noticed a few things that they hadn't the first time. Like the prospective Jonins hiding in the back watching them. Smirking, Naruto gave Sasuke a look that clearly said, "Let's give them a good show." Nodding, Sasuke and Naruto took their places among the other students. Their exchange, however, was missed by everyone but Kakashi and Hinata. Interesting, they are already in sync with each other. Kakashi mused. Naruto-kun, how close are you and Sasuke really? Hinata questioned quietly. Alright, the first match will be Hinata versus Amy. Iruka announced as the girls took their places. Hinata was nervous. Her father was watching and she knew that she was going to mess up. Amy, on the other hand, was confident. She knew that she could win this with one little taunt. Ah, Iruka-sensei, why'd I have to fight the mouse? I might hurt her, she questioned. Hinata looked down in embarrassment. She usually did lose against Amy. While the girl was civilian-born, she did have a mean streak and she was a bully. Amy watched the comments. That is unnecessary, Iruka warned. Don't listen to her, Hinata. She's just scared that you will beat her. So she's attacking with words. You can win the whole thing if you believe in yourself. Naruto yelled, smirking. The last time she had been encouraged by him, she had done quite well. Hopefully this time she will as well. As Hinata's head snapped up, she smiled towards Naruto and took her stance. Naruto-kun believes that I can do this. He has never hit the bullseye before and yet he did today. That is proof that people can change. That means that I can too. Amy wasn't the only one surprised by the sudden change in behavior. Neji, Hanabi and Hiyashi were as well. Though in Hiyashi's case it was hard to tell. Interesting, the Jinchuriki seems to inspire her. Perhaps I have been going about her training all wrong. Hiyashi mused to himself. The match itself didn't last very long and for the first time Hinata was able to defeat Amy. Her smile was as bright as the sun as she left the ring, leaving a fuming bully behind. See, I told you that you just needed to believe in yourself. Naruto commented with a huge smile. Up in his hiding place, Kakashi smiled under his mask. Perhaps I do have a specific team I want after all. Thank you, Naruto-kun. For what? Reminding you that the only thing that can truly hold a person back is themselves? Silly Hinata, you knew that the whole time. Naruto was beaming inside. He vowed that he would not be as oblivious to Hinata this time around. He would be there for her this time and he would not let anything happen to her. There weren't that many girls, so the matches proceeded quickly. All too soon there was only 4 girls left. Sakura, Ino, Hinata, and another civilian girl. Each one had performed remarkably and each one had surprised the audience in some way or another, although it wasn't all good. Many were questioning the education that the kunoichi were getting, if that was the average skill level that they had. Sakura quickly lost her match to Hinata due to poor training and Ino won hers just as fast. The final match came down to 2 of the more sensible kunoichi. As they faced each other, Ino's face split into a huge grin. So, you just needed a little more encouragement, nay? She questioned. Hinata blushed and nodded, but that was all. As Iruka called for the match to begin, neither moved, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Hinata was fine waiting. She had discovered during her fights that she fought better if she reacted to an attack and not instigated one. Ino, however, was not so patient. When she realized that Hinata wasn't going to move, she attacked, and quickly dodged a palm strike. Jumping back, she noticed a faint smile on the heir's face. Smirking, she attacked once again, instigating a series of attacks that failed to make their mark. As the match progressed with each girl dodging the other, it quickly became obvious who the winner was. The Yamanaka clan focused mainly on long-distance abilities, preferring to allow the Akamichi clan do the close-range attacks. The Hyuga clan, on the other hand, specialized in close-range combat. Something Hinata had been trained in since she was little. A little too late, Ino noticed that she had left her side open and Hinata capitalized on it. One strike and she was down for the count. It took a few moments for it to sink in after Iruka called the match, but Hinata's face broke into a huge grin when it hit her that she had just won the tournament. Well, the girls' side anyway. She usually didn't last that long. Turning, she noticed the big sunny smile that Naruto was giving her and nearly bounced out of the ring to allow the boys to have their turn. In the stands, Hiyashi allowed himself to give a rare smile at Hinata's performance. Yes, perhaps that will work after all. He schemed. Next to him, Neji scowled. Hinata's sudden change in performance was in defiance of everything that he believed. It was a fluke, he thought to himself. Hanabi, on the other hand, was both baffled and proud of her sister. Nei-chan has never shown that kind of improvement before, she thought. The boys' half of the tournament became the talk of the town, however. Naruto quickly progressed through the first round, defeating another boy that always taunted him. The speed at which he accomplished the feat was surprising to everyone watching, even the Hokage. Sasuke progressed as expected, if only faster than expected. True to form, both Shikamaru and Choji forfeited at the same time, once again refusing to fight one another. Kiba defeated his opponent quickly as well. Expected from a clan that focuses on taijutsu. Shino won his match only slightly slower than the rest of the group. Still, it was more than anyone expected from a clan that preferred to fight using their Kikai. The second round was somewhat different as Naruto faced off against Kiba. Ready to lose, Naruto? Kiba taunted. Of all the students, Naruto had always had the most trouble fighting him and Sasuke. Naruto just slipped into his normal taijutsu stance, well, the one of the styles he had learned after becoming Hokage, when he realized that the taijutsu he had been taught by the Toads was not as effective if he wasn't using his senjutsu. If the Dobi is using that style, the match is already over. Sasuke commented, getting everyone's attention. Only Ino dared to ask. What style? The dragon style. A very old style that relies on unpredictability to counter any and all opponents. The style wasn't well known until Madara Uchiha learned it and used it frequently. He preferred it to the Interceptor Fist of the Uchiha clan. While it was never documented as a clan style as the elders disapproved of a non-clan style, no one else ever tried to learn it. The people who could hear him were surprised. Why not? If it is that strong, then why not try to learn it? Shikamaru questioned. It is said that the style chooses who learns it and that it is impossible for most to learn, let alone master. I don't believe that Madara ever mastered the style. I, myself, tried to learn it, but it didn't make any sense, and to me the forms didn't flow like they are supposed to. For the Dobi, however, it is as if he was born knowing the style. Sasuke replied. Well, I still say that the Baka has no chance. Sakura huffed. She had been shown up by both Naruto, the class clown and dead last, and Hinata, the wallflower and pushover, in the same day. Well, despite what you erroneously believe, Pinky, the Dobi has already won this match. Sasuke snapped out of character. Sakura drew back as if she had been bitten. No one had ever heard Sasuke talk to anyone like that before. Let alone one of his fangirls. Kiba, who had heard the entire exchange, huffed as well. I don't care what style you are using, this match is mine, he boasted. Naruto just shrugged. Believe what you will, we will never know the victor if the match doesn't start. He replied calmly. Up in the stands, Guy's jaw had dropped. The dragon style. I never believed that I would live to see this most youthful style revived. He exclaimed in awe. Before anyone could ask what he was talking about, Iruka started the match. Kiba charged in as he had in all of his previous fights with Naruto, a strategy that has always worked, only to be grabbed and thrown across the arena, landing on his ass. I don't care what Sasuke says, that was jujitsu. One boy exclaimed. It was. The dragon style contains elements of any and all taijutsu styles. Jujitsu is no exception. Sasuke educated the listeners. Kiba stood gingerly and glared at Naruto, who had already slipped into another stance. This time, however, it was Naruto that attacked, and it was the last attack of the fight. As Naruto's open palm connected with Kiba's nose, he was not only sent flying backwards out of the ring, but everyone heard the distinct sound of bones breaking. Relaxing, Naruto looked over at Kiba and shook his head. You have been using that same strategy against me for 4 years now, Kibbles. Did you really think that I would fall for it? Laughter erupted in the room as everyone took in Kiba's new nickname. As Kiba was fuming, Iruka started the next match, proud of his surrogate brother. He truly has improved. However, I have never heard of anyone improving that much so quickly. Has he been hiding his true strength? His movements flowed together perfectly instead of the choppy, almost forced and exaggerated movements he usually displayed. Sasuke ended his match against Shino. He had managed to force the bug user to display more of his skill than he had intended. The other fights were somewhat mediocre until the last two standing were Sasuke and Naruto. Smirking at each other, they slipped into their usual sparring stances. Sasuke in his lion style and Naruto in his self-made kitsune style. Well then, let the best man win, Dobi. Naruto just smirked in response. I intend to. As soon as Iruka called for the match to start, they met in the middle of the arena, trading blows that were, for the most part, invisible to almost everyone watching. Each blow being countered or redirected. None of the attacks were making contact. Iruka could hardly believe his eyes. Naruto had never lasted 30 seconds against Sasuke, and now he was going blow for blow against him. The adults couldn't stop their jaws from hitting the floor, and even the stone facade Hiyashi usually used in public fell to show his shock. For those that knew what they were watching, and could see it, the two academy students before them were fighting well above Genin level and closer to Jonin level. How is this possible? They all thought. For almost 20 minutes Sasuke and Naruto traded blows, neither giving an inch, until Sasuke felt the exhaustion from his study sessions kick in. While he was physically rested, he had brought the mental exhaustion with him. This caused him to overextend on a punch that Naruto capitalized on. A punch to the stomach and a kick to the chin. Later he was laying on his back outside of the boundaries, cursing at himself for letting himself get so tired. Not a sound was made as the crowd took in what they had just seen. The dead last of the academy had just defeated the shoe-in for Rookie of the Year. Naruto gave a knowing smile and helped Sasuke to his feet. "I'm tired to Sasuke, we studied far too hard. I just deal with it better as I'm used to it. Don't beat yourself up over it, okay?" Iruka didn't think that he could take many more surprises. They had done that while exhausted? How many times had Naruto come to school exhausted? Nodding, Sasuke grinned at Naruto. "We have to try that again later. That's the longest we have gone while remaining in the same place." Laughing, Naruto nodded enthusiastically. Then he looked around and giggled sheepishly. "I think we broke them." Sasuke nodded and then laughed. "Oh well." As soon as he got his bearings straight, Iruka called the match and then dismissed everyone for lunch. In the back of the room, Kakashi couldn't help but feel that the two were hiding something big. Hinata also knew that something was up, as Naruto and Sasuke had never fought on a level like that, and she knew that Naruto never sparred with Sasuke, so there could have been no way for them to know each other's moves that well. If someone is impersonating Naruto-kun, they will regret it, she vowed. As Naruto and Sasuke headed to a small clearing in the forest near the academy that they had found after the war, Hinata and Kakashi followed. Due to their exhaustion, neither time traveler sensed the two. Dropping to the ground, they sighed. "So now what? We already changed some things. Your performance for one. Kakashi-sensei was watching, so I know that he will be suspicious. I honestly think that if anyone else noticed, it would have been Hinata. We need a more definite plan," Sasuke said, rubbing his forehead. "I know, but it is hard to think on an empty stomach and with a pounding headache." "Did our storage seals transfer?" Naruto whined, sitting a little straighter. Rolling his eyes, Sasuke pulled his arm warmers off. Lucky for them, the seals were still there. Unsealing some bentos from one and a medicine kit from another, they set about devouring their food. For once, Sasuke could agree that food was making everything better. After finishing off the bentos and swallowing some painkillers for their migraines, they sighed, feeling some of the exhaustion abate. From a distance, Kakashi and Hinata were struggling to hear what they were saying. They could both read lips, but they needed their dojutsu for that, and revealing them would run the risk of alerting the two they were watching. "For one, I think we should make a timeline of what needs to change so that we are better equipped for Obito's temper tantrum. Hopefully this time we can dismantle the Akatsuki before they start removing the Biju," Naruto said, rolling up his sleeves and revealing his own storage seals. Unsealing some scrolls, ink and a brush, they got to work. Haku and Zabuza would be a valuable asset in the fight. Zabuza was already an A- rank shinobi, so a little more training and he should make S rank and be able to fight the Akatsuki. So we will have to make sure that we get the Nami mission again. Perhaps try to snare a few more C-rank missions so that our teammate, please don't let them be Sakura or Kiba, has the experience necessary for the Chunin exams. We were seriously underprepared. We need to get you into your family estates. I know that you studied your father's scrolls, but that was just what was salvaged after Nagato attacked, and only the ones that had been stored in the Hokage vault. We need to get the rest of his research and your Uzumaki clan scrolls. I need to finish poring over the clan's scrolls as well. I never even got an eighth of the way through when I left Konoha, and when I got back I found out that they had either been confiscated or destroyed. We'll need everything that we can get our hands on," Sasuke began. Naruto nodded, quickly drawing a timeline of what had happened and underneath notes as they were brought up about how they had to change. On the side they were also making notes about what they needed to do to make the changes. "Orochimaru will still come after your Sharingans. What do you propose about that? Kill him in the forest, capture and interrogate, or just prevent the Heaven Seal?" Naruto asked. Sasuke sat back. "Depends. Do you think that you can teach me senjutsu, and if you can, will there be enough time for me to master it like you have? 'Cause if not, I propose getting the seal and then having you alter it. That way he can't control me. I won't abandon Konoha again, and I will have a source of senjutsu without the use of Susanoo," Sasuke reasoned. Humming, Naruto sat back and after a moment nodded. "We'll make that decision based on how far along you are with your senjutsu training by the start of the exams. Speaking of the exams, there is Gaara we need to contend with. Should I approach him before the exams and repair his seal?" I could ask him to pretend to still be insane. At the same time I could tell him an abridged version of why. Or should I wait and just try to prevent Lee's injuries? That is a hard one. I think that Lee's injuries made him a better person that appreciated his talents more than before. At the same time it would be hard to just stand there and watch as his limbs are crushed again. What would you know about that? You were already unconscious from the ceiling. Naruto taunted. Feeling his physical age, Sasuke couldn't help but stick his tongue out. After a few seconds of shock the two burst into much-needed laughter. Meanwhile the two spies were attempting to get close enough to hear them better or at least see the scroll. The invasion needs to be changed. We can't afford to lose so many shinobi. The Sandaime though, I could honestly care less. Naruto hissed. He had been okay when he had found out that the Sandaime had hid his lineage from him. He understood why. He had thought about it for a while and come to terms with the way that he had handled the massacre as well. What he couldn't handle was the lies that he had been told about not having living family. The way that the Sandaime had allowed him to live in the apartment building that should be condemned. How the Sandaime turned a blind eye to the way that he was treated by the village and the obvious sabotage in the academy. He had found out about that after becoming Hokage and started going through the files left behind by his predecessors. The nail in the coffin that shattered any trust or faith he had left in the old man was when he had discovered that the so-called god of shinobi had let Uzu fall when he could have helped. His family had been massacred because the Sandaime had allowed it. Had the Sandaime sent reinforcements they could have evacuated and assisted in the move of the civilians to Konoha. Instead he had refused to send any aid at all and allowed hundreds of innocent people die because he was an asshole. Looking over at his leader and friend's face, Sasuke knew what he was thinking. His family had also been massacred by the Sandaime's decision, just with a different tool. He too could care less about the old man, but he did have to try and calm him down before he started leaking the fox's chakra. "Dobi, calm down a little, okay?" he whispered. Blushing, the sixth fire shadow slumped in his spot and took a deep breath. "Where were we? The invasion and the old fool. We were trying to figure out what to do about it. If we kill Orochimaru in the forest or even capture him, the invasion may not happen. At the same time we run the risk of Kabuto or Kimimaro orchestrating the invasion in his place." Sasuke mused. Kimi is too sick to run the invasion and Kabuto wouldn't do something so brazen at this point. He would wait and probably run the same experiments on himself that he did in the future. We also need to find a way to prevent the Edo Tensei from being used again. That was a real hell. Naruto replied. He rubbed his temples. This was getting complicated. So our action on the invasion will be dependent on the forest. Tsunade does need to return either way. We need a medic program in place before the Akatsuki moves, competent field medics, and we have to make sure that the old drunk doesn't make Sakura her apprentice again. Gods, she must have been more than just wasted to have made that decision. Anyone could see that Hinata or even Ino would have been a better choice. Sasuke lamented, making Naruto laugh. At the same time he had to agree. Making Sakura her apprentice had been a really bad choice. Jiraiya needs to get his act together as well. They both need to get back in top physical shape. They let themselves go too much. Naruto growled. Dobi, they're pushing 60 at least. They can't get back into top shape. Sasuke reminded the blonde. Yes they can, he sing-songed. The raven-haired time traveler started to worry about his companion's mental stability. Shaking his head he returned to the list. We have to get the rookies in gear too. They were way underprepared as well. Especially Choji and Shikamaru. It took Asuma's death before they started to take the world more seriously in a war, before Choji learned that sometimes fighting your friend can be the best thing that you can do for them. Ino needs to get her attitude adjustment faster too. So far we have up to your training trip with Jiraiya for the most part. Sasuke quipped. We can adjust as needed. We need to get back to the academy anyway. We should also sit down and make plans just in case for during the 3-year break and after, just in case. Naruto said, rolling the scroll up and resealing everything. Standing, the two turned and headed back to the academy, their two watchers shrinking back so that they weren't spotted. Both Kakashi and Hinata cursed under their breath, returning as well after they realized that they had heard nothing of value and had only made the picture more confusing. As Hinata headed back as well, she noticed that the Jonin hadn't spotted her. As everyone settled down into their seats in the classroom, Ruka looked over at the Genin candidates and couldn't suppress a grin. They were doing amazing, with a few exceptions of course. Naruto, Hinata and Sasuke on the other hand were exceeding expectations. Especially Naruto. How he had hidden so much talent for so long still eluded him. The main test would be in ninjutsu. Mizuki on the other hand was fuming. The demon was passing with flying colors. At this rate he would never be able to trick him into stealing the scroll, unless he could still use his desire to become Hokage against him. Alright everyone, we will now move into the genjutsu portion of the exam. After we call your name you will move into the next room, and once you have finished the genjutsu portion you will immediately move into the ninjutsu. You will be given your final grade in there as well as your headband and final instructions. Questions? When no one raised their hand, Iruka began the exams, calling everyone in alphabetical order. So far no one had failed, and that was to be expected with the pathetic test and curriculum. Naruto found himself being shaken awake by Ino as Iruka called his name again. "Did I fall asleep?" he asked groggily. "Duh," Ino replied. Shrugging, he stood and followed Iruka from the room. As soon as the door closed he flared his chakra and released a very fine yet powerful pulse of chakra that washed over the room and village, dispelling every genjutsu it was struck by. Blushing, he mentally cursed. "Dobi, I felt that. Did you need to use so much chakra?" Sasuke asked through their link. "Didn't mean to. I was trying to control it the best I could and use as little as possible," he replied sheepishly. "Naruto, what was that?" Iruka asked. It was a chakra pulse. Since I had so much trouble stopping my chakra flow in order to cancel the genjutsu, I tried to find another way. So instead of stopping my chakra, I release a wave that disrupts the caster's chakra instead and releases the genjutsu. I still have problems with it though. I think I hit the whole village with it. Any genjutsu struck by the wave is released if the right amount of chakra is applied," he explained. Iruka's jaw dropped. He had never thought something like that was possible. Yet an academy student had designed and developed the technique on his own. Shaking his head, he marked Naruto's passing grade and looked up only to see the potted plant from the classroom 2 doors down disappear and Naruto take its place in a flawless substitution. "Impressive, now I need to see the transformation and the bunshin." Nodding, Naruto transformed into a flawless replication of the Yondaime, his father. Iruka shook his head as Naruto cancelled the technique. Iruka, can it be any clone jutsu or just the one taught in the academy?" Naruto questioned. "Any, but why the inquiry?" "Well, I still have problems with the bunshin. I can do it but I make way too many and it's hard to keep them inside. So I learned another type of clone thanks to Sasuke loaning me the scroll. So I was wondering if I could just use the one that I have mastered." "Go ahead. There are no rules denoting that it has to be the bunshin no jutsu." Nodding, Naruto smirked as 3 fire clones materialized into existence. Not a single hand seal used. "Perfect, Naruto. You pass." Iruka beamed. "But why did you wait so long?" "I didn't like the other 2 graduating classes. I wouldn't have worked well with any of their teams, but there are quite a few people in this one that I can work with, so I figured that I would pass this time," he bluffed. Iruka nodded and informed Naruto he would have to come back in a week in order to receive his placement. Nodding, he left as Iruka called Ino into the room. Outside he quickly met up with Sasuke and they started towards the Uchiha estate. Hinata and Kakashi following once again. This time however, Naruto sensed them. "We have a few stray cats following us, Teme. Do you think they smell food on us?" he asked casually. "Maybe. Then again, with the way that you eat ramen and your name being Naruto, they probably think you are a fish cake, Dobi," Sasuke replied. Naruto pouted as they entered the complex and headed towards the clan's library. As the door shut, Hinata felt herself whine as she headed home and vowed to learn their secrets tomorrow. Kakashi contemplated his actions and headed towards the tower. Granted, he would be early, but at the same time he needed to make sure that he got his team. In the past he had never requested a specific team and he wanted to make sure that he got the one that he wanted. That was close. "I think they followed us earlier too. I was too tired to notice though." "Think they heard anything?" "Doubted, Dobi. We were too far away and the clearing has very few hiding places. Using their chakra might have tipped us off, so they didn't read our lips either," Sasuke replied. Nodding, they got to work on reading the jutsu that the Uchiha clan had stockpiled that matched their primary affinity. It would be a hard job, but it was worth it. Naruto left the Uchiha clan compound near midnight with another headache. He had read far too much. After Sasuke had returned to Konoha, he had helped Naruto with his memorization skills and he had refused to let Naruto stop until he had a photographic memory. He had cursed a lot during the process, but he was so thankful now that he had. "Naruto, there you are. Can we talk for a minute?" A voice called out from behind him. Turning, he raised an eyebrow at the Chunin and nodded hesitantly. "Do you think he is going to try and get me to steal the scroll again?" he asked his tenant. "More than likely. But I see it as a blessing in disguise. You get to capture a nuke nin, steal the scroll, get another look at the Edo Tensei and maybe make a complete copy before turning it back in." The fox replied. "What did you need, Mizuki-sensei?" Naruto asked. "I was watching your exam closely, Naruto, and to be honest, I think that you would be wasting your skills as a genin. So I wanted to offer you the chance to take an advanced placement exam so you can go straight to Chunin." He lied smoothly. Is Teme being offered the chance to? No. He still has some problems from what happened that bar him from taking the exam. You on the other hand have nothing stopping you from taking it. Naruto tipped his head to the side as if contemplating the offer. What would I have to do? I can't tell you unless you decide to take the exam. If you fail, there is no pressure, you will still get your assignments in a week and no harm done. Okay, tell me. Naruto faked the enthusiasm. Mizuki grinned. Hook, line and sinker. Sneak into the Hokage's office and steal a scroll that is labeled forbidden. Don't worry, he is in on the exam. All you have to do after that is get away and keep the scroll for 3 hours while you are being chased. A typical Chunin type mission. Plus you get to learn a jutsu from it as a bonus. Mizuki explained the test to the boy. Where do I go? If you can get the scroll to this location while keeping it safe within the time allowed and learn a jutsu, you pass early. But you had to demonstrate the jutsu and get the scroll there unharmed. Mizuki said, pulling a map from his hip pouch and showing the eager genin. Nodding in excitement, Naruto beamed. When does the exam start? It starts now. Good luck, he said and snickered as the boy took off. I'll just wait about half an hour after he leaves the tower to alert people. Then not only will I be allowed to kill the demon, but I'll also be out of the village and on my way to Orochimaru-sama. Naruto slipped into the office to easily and quickly swapped the scroll with a realistic fake before slipping back out and into the forest. It was pretty much the same except he was in and out before the Sandame could find him. Plus he set a trap for Mizuki. He will go around and tell everyone that the scroll was stolen and look like an idiot when the Sandame checks, and the scroll is still there. Heading to an entirely different clearing, he sat down and set his shadow clones to practicing the safer jutsu he didn't already know. Meanwhile, he was thoroughly dissecting the Edo Tensei. He knew there had to be a way to stop the jutsu, he just didn't know how. After nearly the whole 3 hours, he headed to the clearing that Mizuki mentioned after sealing the scroll away and dismissing his clones. Mizuki was waiting a little worse for wear. Mizuki-sensei, what happened? Naruto faked concern. Mizuki had growled. He hadn't expected Naruto to switch the scroll for a realistic fake. At first the Sandame had thought him drunk or delirious, but at his insistence he checked the scroll and found it blank. Unfortunately, instead of blaming the demon, they blamed him for the theft, and he had just spent almost 2.5 hours running from shinobi. Nothing, Naruto. Just part of the exam. Now where is the scroll? What scroll? He asked innocently just as a squad of ninja arrived in the surrounding trees, much to Naruto's amusement. Mizuki didn't even sense them. The ninja, Iruka included, watched the exchange cautiously. The scroll for your exam. Mizuki exclaimed. What exam? The one to promote you to Chunin. You were supposed to bring it here to pass early. He said, panicking a little. I have no idea what you are talking about. I came out here because I couldn't sleep anymore and wanted to work on my clone jutsu some more. I saw you here looking beat up and was worried. He said, feigning ignorance. The one that I told you about. The one with forbidden written on it. Mizuki was thoroughly incensed. He knew that the demon had taken the scroll. He had watched him leave the tower with it. Mizuki-sensei, do you have a fever? Or are you drunk? Naruto queried innocently. Growling, Mizuki pulled the Fuma shuriken from his back and dropped the act. Well, I was going to do this the easy way. Tell me where the forbidden scroll of sealing is and I may only remove one of your legs. He threatened. Naruto stood unperturbed. I still have no idea what you are talking about. What is the forbidden scroll of sealing? Besides, if it was forbidden, doesn't that mean that it is off limits to everyone? Brat, tell me where it is and I will tell you why everyone hates you. He tried to reason. Naruto looked at his nails as if inspecting them. Because I have a giant 500-foot-tall nine-tailed fox stuck in my stomach that everyone seems to be mistaking me for because they are sheeple and believe whatever they are told? Or is it because I supposedly killed the Yondaime by being born? Perhaps it was just because I was born on the same day that a lot of people died because of said giant fox? Take your pick. They are all true, I suppose. I was born on the day that the fox was sealed away. The fox is sealed in me and the Yondaime did die sealing the fox in me. So what else could there possibly be? Naruto deadpanned. Mizuki stumbled backwards. How could he know about the fox? In the trees all of the observers were thinking the same way. How did you know? I talked to a psychic and they said that the day I was born the stars were aligned in a very ominous way, so that must mean that the fox was sealed inside me, because seriously, where else could a giant fox go? Looking at the disbelief etched onto Mizuki's face, he groaned. I have a weird tattoo on my stomach that only appears when I use chakra. People call me Demon, Fox, Kyuubi Kid. I was born the same day that the fox attacked. The Yondaime is said in the history books to have used a powerful kinjutsu to defeat the fox, not kill the fox. The Yondaime's specialty was fuinjutsu, and I have a brain that I use every day. Naruto summed up. That seemed to be the breaking point as Mizuki threw the shuriken, and before the spectators could intercept it, Naruto shot forward, dodged the shuriken, and caught Mizuki in the chin with his foot. Despite not wanting to, Naruto knew he put far too much power behind the kick as soon as it connected. Flinching a little as Mizuki's head snapped back at a very bad angle, obviously broken, he sprung off of his hands and landed back where he started. Looking down at Mizuki's corpse, he shook his head. Traitors are among the worst kind of people that walk this planet. If you betray your village, the penalty is death. Attacking another shinobi in good standing is treason. Your attempt to obtain a scroll clearly called forbidden was another mark of treason. Blaming me for your stupidity was irritating, and I know that you are still in the trees. You might as well come out. Naruto called out, making many eyes widened in surprise. As the ninja dropped in the clearing, Naruto yawned and stretched. He really needs some sleep. Naruto, are you okay? Iruka asked tentatively. Sure, why wouldn't I be? It was me or him, and to be honest, I value my life too much for the answer to have been him. Besides, I think that I may be in the shock phase. It probably won't hit me until I have more sleep. So can I go home? Naruto whispered. Uzumaki, do you know where the forbidden scroll of sealing is? Do be honest, one of the ninja demanded. Naruto turned and glared at the shinobi. I know that you are just doing your job, but why does everyone keep asking me that? Do you want me to go find a psychic and ask them? Geez, I don't know anything about a forbidden scroll of sealing. Especially where it is. If I had to wager a guess, wouldn't it be in the Hokage's keeping where it would be safe? He snapped. Get Mizuki's corpse to T&I. Have them do mind walk. Make sure that they locate the scroll. It has far too many secrets to let someone else have it. Kid, what about his memories of convincing you to get the scroll? Or him seeing you leave? Seals, my friend, they will never find my connection to the scroll, he replied. As he got the go-ahead to leave, Naruto jogged from the clearing and headed back to his apartment. Halfway there he met an unexpected obstacle. Who are you and where is Naruto-kun? A pair of angry Byakugans glared at him, and in front of him was his future wife ready to attack. Naruto gulped. Ah, Hinata-chan, you see, the thing is, who are you and where is Naruto-kun? A pair of angry Byakugans glared at him, and in front of him was his future wife ready to attack. Naruto gulped. Ah, Hinata-chan, you see, the thing is. Naruto gulped. This was so vastly different from the Hinata that he knew he had no idea how to handle the situation. As the kunoichi narrowed her eyes and prepared to attack, Naruto knew that he needed to do something. Ah, Hinata-chan, I swear that I am Naruto, and can we talk about this in a non-violent manner? Please? He pleaded. Where is Naruto-kun? She repeated. Groaning, Naruto held his head and sighed, knowing there was no way out of this conversation. Hinata-chan, I can explain everything, but not here in the open. The less people that know, the better. I really need some sleep anyway, so my house? He suggested. The kunoichi growled slightly but relaxed her stance slightly. As Naruto slowly led her back to his house, he whined at his tenant. This sucks. I didn't have any time to figure out what I am going to tell her. Well, sucks to be you. By the way, you are being followed by her ever-faithful retainer. You might want to do something about that. Groaning, Naruto spun, grabbed Hinata's hand and sped away as soon as his smoke bomb hit the ground. While a normal smoke bomb would never have affected a Hyuga, this one had been specially formulated to temporarily render the user blind for a period of 2 minutes. Not completely blind granted, but unable to use their eyes. Hinata couldn't help but hiss at the blonde as he let go only when they were in his apartment. Before she could say anything, he placed several privacy seals and dropped on his bed. Ko was following us. Like I said, the fewer the people who know the better. Please have a seat, he motioned. Sitting in a kitchen chair tentatively, Hinata waited for the explanation. This may be confusing, but try to bear with me till the end. I am not Naruto Uzumaki. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and I am the Rokudame Hokage. I am 31 years old and one of only 2 survivors of Konohagakure no Sato. I time-traveled to try and fix the damage that was done by a shinobi of Konoha and to stop Konoha's annihilation. After using a jutsu that I spent 13 years developing, I arrived in this time this morning. By all rights, my stronger self, my future self, absorbed my weaker self and took command of my body. So while the body is that of Naruto Uzumaki, 12-year-old genin of Konoha, my mind is that of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, 31-year-old Hokage. He started getting her attention. Hinata's eyes were widening with each passing word, and despite the improbability of what he was saying, time travel, she truly believed what he was saying. Who is the other one? The other survivor you mentioned. Uchiha Sasuke, 31-year-old jonin of Konohagakure no Sato, my best friend and surrogate brother. He helped me do the jutsu to come back here. We honestly weren't expecting to come back so close to the exam start though. Naruto chuckled in embarrassment. Hinata, I know that you have a lot of questions and trust me, I would like to answer them all, but unfortunately for you some things are better left unknown. Just trust me when I say that the future is not a cheery place and that I had to do something to stop it. I am not an imposter, I am just more mature and have an older mentally with a true idea of what is expected of a shinobi of Konoha. Can you trust me? He asked steadily. Quietly, Hinata weighed her options and pondered the words of the time traveler. If the future was truly that bad, then why would they risk having to live it a second time? What happened if things don't change? I do trust you, Naruto-kun. However, it seems improbable that there could be time travel. Naruto finished, making her blush. Hi, it's fine. When I started the jutsu everyone called me crazy, so I am used to that reaction. I showed them though. Just like I did when they said that I could never be Hokage. He boasted. Hinata giggled at Naruto's childishness and nodded to herself. It's okay, Naruto-kun. I believe you. Gomen for nearly attacking you. It's fine, you were only doing what was expected of a shinobi of Konoha. You saw something that was suspicious and instead of making up excuses for it you tried to investigate. The sad thing is that the older, more experienced shinobi haven't noticed. I'm sure Kakashi-sensei has, but either than that. Naruto trailed off as his eyelids began to droop. Before Hinata could ask him if he was okay, he was out cold on the bed. Hinata smiled and carefully removed his sandals and tucked him in. Looking back, she smiled as she left. Sharp banging on the door made Naruto jolt awake as he reached for a kunai. Looking around disoriented, he groaned as he remembered what happened and recognized the voice on the other side of the door. Damn it, Dobi, if you don't open the door soon I am just going to kick it in. A yell sounded through the wood. Damn it, Teme, give me a minute to get out of bed. Naruto yelled back. Growling as he heard the Uchiha laugh, he quickly got out of bed and crossed the room, yanking the door open hard enough to send the laughing boy sprawling on his face. Apparently the Uchiha had been using the door for support as he tried to stay standing. Rolling his eyes, he motioned for the boy to enter and close the door. Dropping on his bed, Naruto ran his hand through his hair. Hinata corner you? Sasuke queried as he finally stopped laughing. Yeah, she was about to attack me actually. Thought that I was an imposter and that I had hidden the real Naruto somewhere. Didn't have a choice but to tell her something to calm her down. If only she had been that fierce in the war. Naruto mused. How much did she learn? Sasuke asked seriously. Just that we were time travelers, the only surviving members of Konoha, that I was Rokudame and that you were a Jonin. That's all really. I wasn't sure what else to tell her. I did tell her that she was better off not knowing most of it. So what did you need? More planning. What are you going to do if Jiraiya does his half-assed training again? Sasuke asked while grimacing in disgust. When the Raven had heard of the actual training that Naruto had received in the time that he had been away from Konoha, he had been livid. For the most part, Naruto hadn't learned all that much, and Jiraiya was supposed to be a Sannin for God's sake. He could have taught him a lot more than he did. It had seemed to Sasuke that the best teacher that Naruto had learned from was the Hachibi Jinchuriki in Kumo. Be pathetic in his opinion. Simple. Kick his ass and make him train me. Refuse to proofread his books and shred all of his research notes. Though at this point I doubt that there will be much that he could teach me. Kakashi-sensei as well. It will be worth seeing what they will do when I know everything, or at least, master everything quickly. How are you going to cover your use of the Chidori, its variations, and the snake summoning if you still have it? I won't use Chidori or its variations until after Kakashi-sensei does. Then I can just claim that I copied it accidentally, and since there is no one around to tell me the protocol for copying a teammate or Ali's jutsu, I didn't think to tell him. The variations I made because I realized how dangerous the Chidori was and wasn't sure if I could utilize it properly. Sasuke explained, tilting his head as if in thought. He shrugged. As for the snake summoning, I just won't use it. Or I can say that I read if you use the summoning jutsu without a contract, you could be taken to the summoning that best suits you, and I got the snake contract that way if I have to use it. I honestly don't care for them that much. They are good scouts and even better for covert assassinations, but truly not much else. Unless you are fighting the Jubi and need a way through. Sasuke lamented. Naruto laughed and stretched out on his bed. I still have the Forbidden Scroll. I set up Mizuki last night, so the Hokage thinks that Mizuki hid it somewhere. I will probably be called for a psych eval though. I hit Mizuki a little too hard and accidentally broke his neck. I used seals so they will never find out that Mizuki even discussed the scroll with me. We really need to dissect the Edo Tensei though. We have to find a way to stop it. That was absurd, the way that Kabuto kept summoning the strongest fighters in history to mess with us. Bringing back Madara as impervious with limitless chakra was also a stupid idea. Naruto whined. Sasuke nodded, remembering how hard it had been to fight against Madara both before and after he absorbed the Jubi. The two sat in silence for a few moments before Sasuke stood. Do you think you can create a seal that will allow us to adjust to our younger bodies and get back in top form? The last thing that we need is to be uncoordinated in a fight. Plus we need to know where our chakra limits are. Plus you will probably need to remaster the Kyuubi's chakra, and you said that you still had a little of the other 8 Biju's chakra in you as well. It would come in handy if you could use some of their abilities as well. Sasuke commented, making Naruto stand up and nod. But before that we eat breakfast. Can't train on an empty stomach. Naruto chirped. Sasuke groaned. He should have known that Naruto would bring up food. The two time travelers spent much of the remaining week regaining their muscle strength and remastering their abilities. Both were somewhat disappointed to find out that they would have to resign their respective contracts before they would be allowed to use their summons. It was then that Kurama declared that they could have multiple contracts as long as the contracted bosses agreed and as long as they weren't on the same tier. After contemplating it, Naruto signed the Kitsune contract and Sasuke went to get the clan's cat contract. Naruto resolved to find his way to Uzu one day to retrieve his family's contract. When they walked into the classroom on the morning of the team assignments, they got quite a few stares. Both were wearing different outfits and they were both carrying weapons. Sasuke had a sword strapped to his waist and Naruto had a glaive on his back. Sasuke was wearing black pants, a black shirt and arm guards instead of arm warmers that showed the storage seals on his wrists. Naruto was wearing a black variation and mix of the Yondaime and Nidaime's outfit. The only thing that he was missing was the trench coat, and that was only missing because it was still being made. He had it custom ordered and it wouldn't be ready until the wave mission. The shocking thing about Sasuke's outfit was that the familiar high collar was gone. There was also not a trace of orange on Naruto's outfit either. The transformation had startled the class, and not even the fangirls had anything to say about them entering together and immediately taking a place next to Hinata. Just as it occurred last time, Sakura and Ino burst into the room at the same time, both acting like fools. "Would you two stop it?" Sasuke yelled, getting everyone's attention. "You are acting like children and are embarrassing the girls who actually came here to be kunoichi, which as far as I've seen is limited to just Hinata. Girls like you are the reason that kunoichi aren't taken seriously. You care more about boys, dating, your hair and makeup, clothes, dieting and gossip. In reality you should be focusing on your training, maintaining a healthy weight for an active shinobi and making sure that your clothes are appropriate for combat and training. Now sit down and shut up. The rant left everyone in the room speechless. That was twice now that he had snapped at his fangirls and twice that it had been negative. As everyone who was standing sat down quietly, Iruka walked into the quietest class he had ever had. Wonder what happened, did they see the ghost of the Yondaime or something? Clearing his throat he looked out at the group. To him it seemed as if the girls were finally ready to take the duties of a shinobi seriously. Well, except for Sakura, who looked like she was going to burst into tears at any minute. Congratulations to all of you for getting this far. You have finally taken your first steps as shinobi and I couldn't be any prouder. Now before I announce the assignments we need to hand out Rookie and Kunoichi of the Year. It would have been done sooner had there not been a tie. Kunoichi of the Year has gone to Hinata Hyuga. Congratulations Hinata, Iruka announced and beamed at the shy girl. Once again the room had been shocked. They had thought for sure that Sakura would be the Kunoichi of the Year. Now we had a tie for Rookie of the Year and given the circumstances it was finally decided that this year there would be two. So congratulations Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki. Iruka-sensei, how is that Naruto Baka got Rookie when he spent the whole 4 years barely passing? Sakura called out hoping to regain some dignity. By Naruto's own admission he has been failing on purpose because he wasn't sure he could work effectively with all the other classes. Combined with his performance in the exam the Hokage determined that he wasn't bluffing and agreed that Naruto, had he been honest with his abilities, would have been top of the class the whole time. Iruka explained, "Gee thanks old man, is that your way of kissing up?" Naruto mentally growled. Sakura slumped in her seat and desperately worked at suppressing her tears. Now then each of you will be assigned to a team of 3 with a Jonin supervising your training. The decisions are final so if you don't like your team I'm sorry but complaining won't help. Each team was designed to be balanced with a specific format in mind. Team 1, Naruto zoned out and began to mentally continue the seal design that he had started yesterday designed to counter the Edo Tensei. Team 7 under Hitaki Kakashi will be Hyuga Hinata, Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. Iruka was cut off before he continued by Sakura. I thought that you said the teams were balanced. How is placing both rookies and the Kunoichi of the Year on the same team balanced? Iruka stared at the Kunoichi for a minute in shock. Sakura had actually asked an intelligent question. By tradition Rookie of the Year, Kunoichi of the Year and the Dead Last are always placed on the same team. However, as there has never been a tie for Rookie of the Year we were a bit perplexed as to how to format the team. Luckily for us Hitaki had actually wanted a specific team and made a formal request for this specific setup. The Hokage was skeptical as to the balance but apparently Kakashi made a compelling argument. Iruka explained. Sakura slumped in her seat, now she wasn't going to be on Sasuke's team either. Team 8 under Yuichi Kurenai will be Haruno Sakura, Inuzuka Kiba and Aburame Shino. Team 9 is still in rotation and Team 10 under Sarutobi Asuma will be Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji and Nara Shikamaru. Your Jonins should be here after lunch. Once again Iruka was cut off but this time it was by the door opening. Gomen, but I just couldn't wait to get my team. Team 7 follow me. Kakashi called out startling the time travelers. He's early. They screamed mentally. As they left the room with the Jonin they were certain that it wouldn't take Madara and the Jubi to end the world. It was going to happen in the next 10 minutes. Well then now that we have arrived we can begin. I saw how well you 3 interacted at the exams and to be honest I am going to skip the test I was going to administer because I don't think that you need it. So here's the thing. We are going to get to know each other better and then we will start training. So I am Hitaki Kakashi. My likes are numerous. My dislikes are traitors and those that abandon their teammates. My hobbies, well despite being officially adults now, you are still far too young for that. As for my hopes and dreams for the future those are to see you become the best shinobi that you possibly can be. Kakashi said as soon as they arrived at Training Field 7. The 3 genin behind him were rather startled at his abruptness. Well. I am Hyuga Hinata. I like flower pressing and cinnamon rolls. I dislike the division in my clan and those that look down on others for no reason. My hobbies are training and making medicinal salves, and my dream for the future is to abolish the caged bird seal and help Naruto-kun achieve his dream. Hinata managed to squeak. Kakashi nodded his head and looked over at the Uchiha. Uchiha Sasuke. My likes are limited to training and tomatoes. My dislikes are far too numerous to count, but do include a certain worthless pink-haired banshee. My hobbies are training to get stronger, and my dream is avenge the Uchiha clan and do everything in my power to make sure that the Dobi becomes Hokage. He stated flatly. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the conviction he had here at the end, but looked onto the final genin. Naruto was staring back at him with all the confidence in the world. Uzumaki Naruto. I like training, playing pranks and ramen. I dislike waiting for ramen, traitors, liars and deserters. I have very few hobbies, but I do like gardening, learning new things and training. My dream for the future is to become Hokage, right past wrongs and bring peace to the shinobi world. That way I can make the Shodai's dream a reality, he declared. Kakashi could honestly say that he was surprised. The differences in their personality than what had been reported were more than clinical error permitted. Hinata had been the only one that had remained the closest. Plus there was something in the way that Sasuke said that he wanted to avenge the Uchiha that made him believe that there was something that he didn't even know about the massacre that somehow Sasuke did know. Nodding, he straightened and looked at the assembled genin. Alright then, Hinata, I know that you are shy and are probably uncomfortable without it, but you have to take the jacket off. The only thing that will be accomplished by wearing that from now on is causing you to overheat, he stated. Nodding in embarrassment, she swiftly removed the jacket. Alright, hold out your arms. I need to see your wrists, he commanded, and the genin did as they were told. After he had finished drawing some sort of seal on them, he repeated the process with their legs. A few hand seals later and the three genin were already starting to understand what exactly happened. You'll notice that you feel a bit different right now. That is because you are all wearing resistance seals and now face more resistance to your movements than previously. Naruto, you are also wearing gravity and weight seals. Due to your condition, you are able to use this training method where Hinata and Sasuke can't. Kakashi informed the genin. It's alright, sensei. Hinata knows about the Kyuubi. You don't have to beat around the bush with us, Naruto replied. After a second he tilted his head. Actually, any reasonably intelligent person should know about Kyuubi, because how do you seriously kill chakra? He mused. Kakashi was smiling under his mask and knew then that he had made the right choice in his team. Alright, I want you to do 100 laps around the clearing and follow it up with 100 push-ups, sit-ups, squats, lunges and punches and kicks. If you feel tired, I want you to take a small break. There is no point in hurting yourself on the first day. I will be back. I need to go and retrieve something for all of your training, he informed them before using the Shunshin no Jutsu to leave. Nodding at each other, Sasuke and Naruto sprinted from their starting point and looked back at Hinata. We are way ahead of you already, Hinata, because of how we got here. We will catch you up so that there isn't so much of a discrepancy. For now, just do what you can and don't get discouraged, Sasuke called back, making the kunoichi nod and start after them. She just knew that somehow she would be able to catch up to their level and that she would be able to accomplish her dream. By the time that Kakashi arrived back at the training ground, he was surprised to see Hinata, Naruto and Sasuke hanging upside down from tree branches, casually throwing a water balloon back and forth. What are you up to? He asked in amusement. Well, we finished what you wanted us to do, so we started working on individual skills when Hinata told us that we were wasting too much chakra in some of our techniques, so she helped us with chakra control exercises, and we decided that since we got the tree climbing real fast, we would work on our focus, Naruto explained as he tossed the water balloon to Sasuke. And the balloon? To help our focus and coordination. See, we aren't allowed to touch the balloon for more than 5 seconds, so we had to catch it and throw it fast while aiming and remaining attached to the tree, Sasuke informed the slightly baffled but very proud Jonin. He had never seen a team bond quite like they were, and they were taking the initiative to assist each other in their training. Setting down the equipment he had brought, he smiled. I take it that the clan taught you the tree climbing? Hi, have you learned the water walking yet then? No. Father said that I didn't have the necessary level of mastery over the tree climbing and he wasn't going to teach me, Hinata whispered. Alright then, how about you three come down and we will continue with your training, he suggested as the three nodded and jumped down in front of him. The next 2.5 hours were spent on various chakra control exercises that, while they caught on to quickly, Sasuke and Naruto were in desperate need of. The next thing that we are going to do is find a weapon that you are comfortable using that is outside of what you already have. I know that the Hyuga clan frowns on any technique outside of the gentle fist, but they can kiss my ass if they don't like it. I am your Jonin now, Kakashi declared as the three somewhat tired genin looked up at him. Pulling out a scroll, he unsealed a massive variety of weapons. Sasuke looked over at Naruto, who nodded. Kakashi-sensei, is there any reason that Madara was the only person who ever used a gunbai and scythe? Naruto asked. I believe that it was deemed an impractical weapon and many people refused to use it due to its connection to Madara. Why? I've always wondered what it might be like to fight with one. That's why, Naruto replied. Kakashi stared at the genin for a while, attempting to ascertain the reason behind the question, and after a while he nodded. Well, if you want to try and use one, that is up to you, but I don't think that I would be much help in learning how. You would probably want to ask around for a weapons master. Kakashi chirped. Thanks, sensei. What kind of weapon would go well with my kunai, shuriken, glaive and sword? Naruto asked sheepishly. Kakashi's sweat dropped at the genin. He knows how to use all of those already. Well, have you thought of using chakra knives? You seem to have a decent arsenal of mid to long range weapons but no close combat weapons. Kakashi explained. Naruto nodded in enthusiasm. He had intended on learning how to use them, but he never had time. Kakashi-sensei, to tell you the truth, I am only comfortable with my sword, kunai, shuriken and a bow and arrow. Although the latter could use some work, Sasuke stated to the impressed Jonin. That's fine, we can work on your archery skills. Kakashi replied. Time and time again they were proving to be the right team for him. Kakashi-sensei, I have no idea. I never even thought of using a weapon before. Hinata spoke up somewhat timidly. So far Kakashi's advice had been right on the money. After the first 5 laps she knew that had she been wearing her coat she would have fainted. Well, Hinata, has there been anything that has interested you before? It's all right if there isn't, but it would be good to know if you had an interest before the clan stepped in. No. Kakashi tilted his head at the heiress and began to make a mental list. Tell me, Hinata, if you had a choice between fighting the enemy on the front lines or healing an injured comrade on the front lines, which would you choose? Healing. In that case I am going to look into getting you some Iryojutsu training, and you should look into something that will improve your range. Senbon, bow and arrow, and maybe a kodachi or a chakra blade. Kakashi mused. The kunoichi's eyes widened at the suggestion. Naruto and Sasuke had noted earlier that her Juken was impressive but lacked the range necessary for most shinobi. Kakashi-sensei, wouldn't be possible to use the Senbon to make the Juken more of a ranged attack? Naruto mused, genuinely curious. Interesting question, Naruto. I couldn't say for sure, but if done properly then yes, it could. He admitted. Hinata got a big smile and nodded in consent as they began to work on their various weapons. As the door opened to the compound, Hinata flinched and slowly walked into the Hyuga house. Kakashi had been brutal when they had moved to taijutsu training. He said that he knew the team had a lot of potential and that he intended to bring it all out. Pulling her shoes off, she quickly headed upstairs and took a quick bath before heading back down for dinner. Like always, the meals in the clan were quiet affairs with the occasional question. Though many of the times they were not directed at her. She seemed to be a fly on the wall, and that was fine with her. Hinata, tell me how things went today. Did they finally announce the class standings? Who is your sensei? Hiyashi queried, breaking the silence. Startled at being addressed, Hinata almost dropped her chopsticks. It went well, Toussaint. The class standings were announced and I was named Kunoichi of the Year. Naruto-kun and Sasuke-san were tied for rookie, so it was given to both of them. She replied to her father. The surprise that Hiyashi felt could not be hidden. Even he had expected different. Hinata always came in between 5th and 3rd and the class never any higher. I see. In your team? I was assigned to Team 7 under Hitaki Kakashi. My teammates are Naruto-kun and Sasuke-san. Apparently Kakashi-sensei wanted the 3 of us and put in a specific request. Hinata replied. Again Hiyashi was surprised. He knew for a fact that Team 7 was historically designated as a first response team. He had been under the impression that she would wind up on a tracking team. Once again he had been taken by surprise, and everything had started to change after the academy exams. Ever since Naruto had encouraged Hinata at the taijutsu tournament, everything had changed in a very unpredictable way. You were out quite late. Kakashi-sensei started our training today. He didn't want to waste any time. He thinks that Team 7 could be the next generation of Sannin. I'm supposed to meet him every day at 5 in the morning for training, and he said that I would be lucky to make it home before 6. She whispered. Not used to having the attention on her was making her nervousness grow. She was afraid that she was going to start stuttering any second. I see, was all the Hyuga patriarch said before you went back to his dinner. The rest of the meal was eaten in silence. The silence was something that Hinata welcomed. Across from the table, Neji found himself fuming internally. Twice now she had defied her fate. She should never have been able to pull off that win at the tournament, and now, despite being behind the rest of the class the last 4 years, she had managed to be the top-ranked kunoichi of her class. There had to be favoritism somewhere, and he vowed to find out where. Ah, Sasuke, everything hurts. Naruto whined as he dropped down on Sasuke's bed. He was only wearing a pair of shorts and was watching as the raven-haired teen tossed his dirty clothes in the laundry. What did you think training with Kakashi-sensei seriously was going to do, tickle? He demanded. Naruto just stuck his tongue out and rolled onto his back. It did last time. I'm surprised that Kakashi-sensei didn't ask any questions or try to force us to show more than we wanted to. Naruto mused out loud. You're not the only one. I was surprised too. He will though. He just hasn't decided the proper time for it yet. What do you think the odds of catching Hinata up are? He asked his friend. Pretty good. Once we get her chakra a little higher, we can teach her the shadow clone and have her train even when she is at home. That way we can take her into the seal we designed and spend more time with her there. Good thinking. She seems dedicated to helping you. I just hope that she doesn't overdo it. She tends to get carried away when you are involved. Sasuke chuckled. Naruto groaned and nodded. And reckless too. As the two friends looked at each other, they felt some of the weight coming off of their shoulders at the thought of having help. We need to train hard and make sure that one way or another we make the Nami mission. That way we can save and recruit Zabuza and Haku. Naruto nodded and applied a privacy seal to the room. Then he drew the forbidden scroll of sealing from his storage seal and spread it out. Both shinobi gained a look of concentration as they began to study the Kuchiyose Edo Tensei. It was going to be a long night for both of them. Up in a nearby tree, Kakashi slipped from his perch, cursing his inability to gather much of anything on the two. Unbeknown to the copy ninja, the two shinobi weren't meditating, they were reading the very scroll that the whole village was still searching for. I will discover what you two are hiding. Please don't make me regret my choice by doing something that will make me have to deal with you. He prayed mentally. The training with Kakashi, Naruto and Sasuke was proving to be quite brutal for Hinata, but she was absolutely adamant about catching up to her teammates and being of use in the coming war. She had just never noticed how weak the academy had made many of the shinobi when compared to where they needed to be. Sasuke and Naruto had explained to her that the other countries had much better academies, even if their methods were questionable. From what she heard of the future, she was inclined to believe that. She had heard that Shino was having a very difficult time with his team as well. Kiba and Sakura must be holding him back. She was a little miffed at Kurenai for not getting those two in line by now. Sure, she saw the Jonin as a surrogate older sister, but at the same time she was acting so much different than she remembered. Then again, Kurenai hadn't done much to help her confidence either. Stretching, she stepped out of the shower, dried off and began to dress for the new day. Breakfast was a quiet affair like normal, although she noticed that Neji kept staring at her as if there was something that he wanted to ask like usual. She never understood why he hated her so much, but she was bound and determined to mend the rift that had grown between them. Placing her dishes in the sink, she grabbed the bag she always brought to training and darted out the door. Kakashi-sensei said that they were going to be doing some rather harsh training today, and she wanted to at least be warmed up before he decided to half-kill them. Reaching the training field in record time, she noticed Sasuke and Naruto do a quick spar and critiquing each other's form. She had found that their daily habits seemed odd at first, but then had come to the realization that they were making each other stronger. The two combatants ended their spar when Hinata stepped into the clearing. Naruto ran his eyes over her and then nodded. Stretching, they headed over to the heiress and smiled warmly at their teammate. Well, all those chakra building exercises are coming in handy. You are ready to learn the shadow clone. That means that we can get more done faster. Now the thing you need to know about this method, Hinata, is that if you overdo it, you will die. So please try not to advance it past the limits that we give you, okay? Sasuke asked. Hinata couldn't help but beam at the praise. Bear in mind though that Sasuke and I can use it far more freely than everyone because we have had practice, far more chakra, and we've learned how to deal with the mental backlash that comes with it. Naruto stated. I can use it more than Sasuke can because of the fox. Now the shadow clone is an advanced clone that allows you to make a solid copy of yourself that has its own chakra network. As a result, the clone can cast jutsu and use your techniques, although I am not certain how well your Byakugan will work with a shadow clone. It also takes a lot of chakra. Most Jonin avoid using it because of how draining it can be. However, you can easily send your clone into enemy territory and scout for information and then simply have it dispel when it finds what it is looking for. The information that it gains will be sent back to you, along with remaining chakra. However, it also sends back the exhaustion as well. The payoff is worth it. The exhaustion and mental backlash of the memory transfer is what makes it dangerous as a training tool. However, proper training and meditation help to minimize the backlash. Never make more clones than you can handle either. Always dispel the clones after approximately 4 hours of training or 2 hours of reading, that way you will get used to the effects faster. During training, if your clone finds a way to improve the technique or makes headway with the technique, dispel that clone in order to transfer the knowledge of what was discovered. That way the rest of your clones will be able to take it even further. Physical training cannot be done with the shadow clones either. Muscle memory yes, but strength, endurance, speed and resistance training no. Jutsu and elemental manipulation as well as Fuinjutsu and Iryo Jutsu can. Sasuke continued. Hinata nodded in understanding. Just from what they had told her, it was clearly a very useful but dangerous training method if used improperly. I'm ready, she said, conviction filling her voice. Since starting to work with Naruto and Sasuke, she had managed to get more confident than she had ever been and had lost her stutter. Something that she was very grateful for. She was bound and determined to stand by Naruto's side during the coming darkness, and nothing would stop her. Now then, here is the only hand seal for the shadow clone. Naruto stated, bringing her attention back to the present. Nodding in understanding, she set to work on master the shadow clone and becoming one step closer to reaching their level. When Kakashi arrived at the training field a half hour later, he was greeted by the sight of multiple copies of his students doing various exercises while a three-way fight was occurring in the center of the training field. They know the shadow clone? Since when? I really need to start asking them about this. I suppose that the Uchiha clan could have written down the shadow clone at one point. However, do they realize how dangerous this training method really is? Well, it seems that you are up very early this morning. Plus you got a head start on your training. What are your shadow clones working on? He queried innocently. Oh, you know, various clone techniques, and well, since we didn't have any litmus paper, we decided to test our chakra the hard way by learning E-class ninjutsu of various elements and seeing what was easier to learn. Plus Hinata's clones are still helping us fine-tune our chakra control, so that is a thing? We are also doing some weaponry training over there to get better practice with them. You know, work on muscle memory and all. Naruto answered nonchalantly as he dodged a foot flying at his face and quickly spun to avoid a Juken strike. I see, and when did you learn the shadow clone? A while ago from one of the scrolls in Sasuke's library. I learned it first because of Fuzzy, and then Sasuke learned it a few months later when his chakra reserves were up to par, and we just taught Hinata an hour ago. Naruto replied, catching Hinata's hand and throwing her into Sasuke. Kakashi was very impressed. So how often and long do you usually train before and after our sessions end? Together? About half an hour to an hour before and somewhere close to 2 or 3 after. Alone? I don't think we stop even in our sleep. Sasuke replied, standing and helping Hinata to her feet. Kakashi could say that he was honestly impressed by his team. They had taken the initiative to train even harder than he was pushing them, and they seemed happy about it. So sensei, could we learn our chakra types? We wanted to start learning some elemental ninjutsu and try to make some combination attacks with them, but since we aren't sure exactly what types we have, we are at a loss on where to start. Hinata is having some trouble with the jutsu, I think because the Hyuga clan stresses taijutsu so much. Her chakra isn't used to being used outside of that capacity. Naruto queried. Kakashi couldn't help but feel pride welling up in him, but at the same time he was starting to get even more suspicious of the two boys and their very determined way of pushing themselves to get stronger than most genin right out of the academy ought to be. I suppose it wouldn't do any harm. Elemental manipulation is something that most chunin haven't even started. So don't be disappointed if there are no results, Kakashi said. He had hoped that if he stayed on the cautious side but also opened up a little more than normal, they would eventually trust him enough to not give vague answers to his questions. Pulling 3 sheets of litmus paper out, he grinned to himself. Do you know how litmus paper works? You put chakra in it and the reaction is indicative of which elements you are more suited for? Hinata answered a little tentatively. Nodding, he handed the sheets to his students and laughed as Naruto squinted at the paper. You know, I never did figure out how that worked. Granted, the paper is made from chakra trees, right? The books I've read on chakra trees, however, say that it is impossible to harvest anything from the tree because even the smallest amount of chakra can cause a reaction, making it useless. So how do they get the paper? He questioned in genuine curiosity. Surprised, Kakashi shrugged. I have no idea, he said, and then cleared his throat. Alright then, if the paper burns well, you obviously know that it is fire. If it crinkles, then it is lightning. If it gets wet, then it is water, and if it tears, then you have wind. Got it? The 3 genin nodded in understanding. Alright then, who wants to go first? Kakashi asked and smiled to himself when Hinata volunteered. The heiress was very quickly overcoming her shyness and becoming more outgoing and assertive thanks to the team, and he was hopeful that she would be able to keep up the progress. He was surprised when the paper crinkled and then began to burn. 2 chakra types? Lightning and fire. I just might have more fun than I thought with this team. Good. Lightning and fire. An interesting combination, especially for a Hyuga. It's fine though. It will make your Jukin that much more devastating. Hinata nodded and watched as Sasuke shrugged. Another lightning type? Again with fire as well? Did I really pick a team with all the same chakra types? Well, that's interesting. I've never seen 2 genin have the exact same chakra types before. Naruto, shall we make it 3 for 3? He joked. Naruto smirked and applied the chakra to his paper. Kakashi had been half joking when he said make it 3 for 3, however, Naruto did indeed follow through. That wasn't all though. First, the paper split into 4 sections and each section reacted differently. One of the sections got wet, another crinkled, another burned, and the last crumbled. Kakashi could only stare in shock at the grinning genin. All 3 of his genin had the same chakra type and one of them had them all. You never cease to amaze me, Naruto. All 5 chakra types? It seems as if your fire and wind are the strongest, with wind being slightly stronger. If you are able to combine them, technically you have access to all of the elemental Kekkei Genkei. So then, shall we start on elemental manipulation? The next few days saw the team rapidly increasing in progress and longer training sessions. It wasn't much of a problem for Naruto and Sasuke as they were used to training all day and night, but it was a different story for Hinata. Hiyashi was the first to notice that she would be asleep within a half hour of arriving home and that she was doing more of her training away from the compound. Even if Kakashi had sent her home with exercises, he never saw her do them. However, he could tell that her chakra reserves were increasing far faster than he believed that they should. So he decided to ask Kakashi about his training methods. He wasn't angry, just worried. Naturally, Kakashi was somewhat late, but not by as much as usual, and he had a good excuse. Sorry about being late, Hiyashi-sama, but I had to find someone to watch my team while they did their daily D-rank missions. Kakashi apologized as soon as he entered the room. It's fine. I had a few questions on Hinata's training I wanted to ask, and seeing his training went on till almost 10 o'clock yesterday, I figured I would have to question during training. Did it really? My apologies, I'll try not to keep them as long. Hiyashi couldn't tell if Kakashi really meant that or if it was sarcasm. What is Hinata learning at the moment? He said, cutting to the chase. Well, right now, literally how to clean a river while wearing weights attached to her arms. If you mean it training in general, then we are working on weaponry, strategy, stealth, and elemental manipulation. She is also receiving Iryo training at the hospital. Kakashi replied. Hiyashi took a moment to process what he had just been told. Are they not a bit young to be doing elemental manipulation? Normally I would say that genin are. However, Hinata, Sasuke and Naruto are absorbing what I am teaching them, and by the time I get to training the next day they have taken it almost 4 lessons ahead. Furthermore, Hinata has a lightning and fire affinity that I just couldn't ignore. I figured that if they didn't have an affinity we could work on chakra strengthening exercises, and if they did elemental manipulation. They have truly taken to it. They have developed their own training methods as well. I'd say 1 or 2 more days and then they will have their elements mastered. Afterwards I intend to teach them a few jutsu of their respective elements and then take them on their first C-rank mission. Kakashi explained to the baffled clan head. Hiashi was not expecting any of that. He most certainly did not expect to hear that Hinata had 2 affinities. You are aware of the clan's position in jutsu and weaponry, right? You are aware that as her Jonin I can teach her whatever I want and then clan can't interfere unless it poses a direct threat to her safety, right? The way I see it, limiting her to only the Jukin is a waste of her talents. She is very skilled and her accuracy with a bow and arrow is starting to make most Enbu look like amateurs. Kakashi countered. Hiashi realized that war had been lost. The clan elders wouldn't be happy, but Kakashi was right. There was nothing they could do to stop him as long as his training did not pose a threat to Hinata's safety. Sighing, he turned to look out the window. I have nothing against Hinata. I truly care for her, however, the pressure to crown an heir and brand the other is getting quite tiresome. She had shown so little improvement I gave up on her. Merely keeping her position as firstborn and Hanabi's skill level as a buffer so I didn't have to choose. It is not wrong to protect one's children. The only thing that could be wrong is how you protect them. In Hinata's case it tore down her self-confidence. Instead of accepting things the way they were, training with her more and looking for the trouble areas would have sufficed. By keeping their skill levels roughly the same, the buffer would be more effective as there would be more reason to wait. Arguing that while they were at the same skill level currently, either one could pull ahead and become stronger than the other. Buying more time with less headaches. She doesn't blame you. She loves you. All she wants is your approval, and to reunite the clan as the family that it should be. Kakashi said, standing. If you'll excuse me, I really need to get back to my team. One last question before I go though. Is it true that the cage bird seal can be replaced without the elder's interference so long as a similar seal to protect the Byakugan is produced? Yes. The question had taken Hiashi by surprise, but he had answered nonetheless. Nodding, Kakashi shined out of the room, leaving the Hyuga to his thoughts. When Hinata returned home she was sore. After training had ended, Naruto and Sasuke had used some strange jutsu and somehow managed to do almost 6 months of training in only half an hour. They said that it was a space-time ninjutsu that they had developed to improve faster, and to be honest it was kind of neat. I'm home, she called out and found her father sitting in the dining room staring at a glass of tea. I'm home, father. Kakashi-sensei said to take tomorrow off so we are well rested for our first C rank. Already? He said that he would only accept one when you mastered your elements and learned a few jutsu from each. Hiashi nearly squeaked. We kind of trained through lunch. Naruto, Sasuke and I. She admitted in embarrassment. The look on Kakashi's face when they came back from lunch with their elemental training complete had been priceless. Of course each of them had a few shadow clones doing the training at the same time ever since they learned the exercises, so it went faster than he had expected. Hiashi shook his head in amusement. Perhaps Kakashi had taken a team he couldn't keep up with. Lifting his hand, he handed Hinata a scroll that he had been keeping on him since Kakashi's visit. These are your mother's scrolls. She was working on some techniques for the Jukin and her notes are in there. He whispered, startling the girl. She would want them finished, and I can't think of anyone more suited than you. Hinata smiled fondly and hugged her father for the first time in years. Kakashi, I know that you have been making excellent progress with your team, I really do, but I think that you may be pushing them too hard. You haven't had them long. I understand that, Sandame-sama, however, I think that you are underestimating how much they are pushing themselves. I am the one struggling to keep up. Furthermore, I believe that Naruto is well aware of his heritage, he just isn't saying anything. All I am asking is permission to go to Uzu and try to recover anything that may be left by the Uzumaki clan for him. He deserves that much, don't you think? Kakashi countered. He had been arguing with the Hokage for a few hours now. Why was it so difficult to allow them to stop at Uzu on the way back from a mission? Be that as it may, Kakashi, you are well aware of why I haven't allowed any missions to Uzu to try and locate anything that may have been left behind. The third fire shadow countered. I know what you say, but I don't believe that is the real reason. Sandame-sama, Naruto is an Uzumaki and the heir of not just the Uzumaki clan but also of the country itself. As a foreign diplomat, I can't stop him if he chooses to return to his homeland, and at the rate he is improving he may need access to his clan's techniques if we want to slow him down before he hits Anbu level in a few months. Furthermore, I believe that the two have yet to open up to me because we are in the village where people could be listening. Kakashi countered. He knew that he was pushing boundaries and crossing the line only to get back behind it again, but he had to get the Sandame to see that he had to get Naruto to Uzu. It was the least Kakashi could do for abandoning his sensei's son the way he did. He just hoped that the Sandame didn't make things worse for his failing relationship with Naruto. He had seen how quickly things had changed between the two, and he had a sinking suspicion it was because Naruto knew who his family was and that the Sandame had been lying to him the whole time. The look on the old leader's face told him he would be there for a while though. The morning was cool and the air crisp. It was an unusually cool day in Konoha, but it would warm up soon enough. The three genin were sparring as was becoming custom, and it would be exhilarating to watch and compare from the children that had only been academy students a mere month and a half ago. The ease at which Hinata was adapting to new things was startling even for Sasuke and Naruto, who had seen her adapt to rapid changes. While she had not managed to jump several levels in skill, she had managed to catch and easily surpass her old self's talent by the Chunin exams. While that wouldn't seem like much of a jump to most in retrospect, she managed 9-10 months of training in just a month and a half with Sasuke and Naruto. Naruto knew that if Hinata could see herself with a different Jonin and the improvements that had been made, she would never have believed it. The visible difference was staggering. The loss of her stutter, the confidence in her posture and the more fluid movements were just the beginning. She was also excelling in her studies with a bow and arrow and was trying to combine her Jukin with Senbon needles. If she could manage, she would easily become a mid-range fighter. Their progress with their elements was rapidly excelling. Despite the fact that Naruto and Sasuke had already done some of it before they had needed to start over due to their younger bodies. Regardless, they had soared past their previous benchmarks, and according to Kakashi there was little more that they could do to improve their mastery. Sasuke, Naruto and Hinata disagreed. As a result, they were working on pushing their control further. Sasuke believed that the height of mastery of lightning manipulation was the ability to control the electrical impulses that the brain sent to the whole body, thus technically controlling the person. Hinata insisted that the height of fire control would be the ability to remove or add heat to specified places. For example, remove all the heat in the human body and cause sudden hypothermia, or add heat to another person's body in order to stave off hypothermia. Naruto just wanted to fly. He was working on a way to use his wind chakra to mimic Onoki's ability to fly with his particle release. For him it was a matter of importance. If he could fly himself and his team around, they would be able to avoid ambushes and arrive at battlefields faster. It would also give aerial coverage to any large battles. That was something that only Iwa and the Akatsuki could boast at the moment. The three genin looked up as Kakashi stepped into the clearing. "Yo, how are my cute little genin this morning? How many times do I have to tell you I am not cute, nor am I little?" Naruto yelled in response, making everyone laugh. Sasuke had been unable to curb that habit with the blonde, and as a result it was always comical when it happened. Kakashi just laughed and waved his hand dismissively. "Well, no need to get antsy. I decided that we are going to do a mission today, and instead of the boring D ranks we are going to do a C rank. Then afterwards it will most likely turn into an A- rank. Doesn't that sound fun?" Kakashi chirped. The three genin blinked in shock. A C rank followed by an A- rank? Naruto squeaked out. Make no mistake, he wasn't scared, he was ecstatic to be doing higher level missions again. But he knew for a fact that the team wasn't quite ready to jump into A-rank missions. Calm yourselves. The A ranking is merely because of its location. Technically it is more of a C rank. However, because of its location it is classified as an A- rank. Kakashi explained. The three blinked and looked at each other before nodding in agreement. "So when do we leave?" Sasuke asked. He was eager to get back to doing what he knew best, missions. He also wanted to make sure that his skills hadn't suffered any. Although, he was anxious given the last mission he had been on. A small part of him was worried that he wouldn't be able to protect Hinata or his Hokage. The last thing that he wanted to do was hurt Naruto any more than he had already been hurt. "Stop thinking about that. You need to be focused on the mission. If you are focused on screwing up, then you will. He chastised himself. As soon as all of you reach the gate, Kakashi informed them and then headed off to gather his mission gear. 10? Naruto asked the other two. 10. They chorused their agreement. The three then vanished from the clearing, leaving hardly a trace that they had been there. When Hinata got home, she quickly began to inspect her gear to ensure that nothing was missing. One thing that Sasuke and Naruto had told her to do was always keep her gear packed and maintained so that little time would be wasted when they headed out. She kept that advice to heart and then darted down the hall to her father's study. "Father, may I come in?" she called through the door. Receiving permission, she entered the room and bowed to the stern man before her. "Kakashi-sensei just informed us that we are heading out on a mission and I am to meet them as soon as possible at the gate. I wanted to inform you before I headed out so you wouldn't worry." She informed him. "What kind of mission? As far as I remember, your team has done few D ranks." Hiyashi inquired, slightly surprised at the abruptness of Kakashi's decision. "A C rank immediately followed by an A- rank mission," she said softly, hoping that the other man wouldn't explode at the news. To be fair, the stoic Hyuga managed to not spit out his tea at the news. "A rank?" he sputtered, trying to clear his lungs of the tea that he had just swallowed. "Hi, Kakashi better know what he is doing," Hiyashi snarled. He had no desire to see his eldest die due to a careless jonin. Hinata, on the other hand, was trying desperately not to laugh at her father. She had not expected him to try and drown himself in tea. "I'm sure that I will be fine," she managed with a straight face. Nodding tentatively, Hiyashi gave Hinata permission to leave and groaned. He would make mincemeat of the copy ninja if anything happened to Hinata. Sasuke and Naruto didn't take that long retrieving their gear as well. Seeing as Naruto had been spending the nights at Sasuke's to try and decipher the Edo Tensei, he had left all of his mission supplies there. As soon as they had them and ensured everything was fine, Naruto waited for his friend to lock the door before applying some high-level security seals. The last thing that they wanted was for some fangirl to break in and find the scroll of sealing unrolled on Sasuke's bed. Darting to the gate, they found that Kakashi was already there and Hinata was just arriving. "Not bad. 7 minutes and 13 seconds. You really have increased your speed, haven't you?" Kakashi commented. The three nodded breathlessly, and after an equipment check, Kakashi almost had a heart attack at the mini armory Sasuke and Naruto had brought. They headed out. It was almost an hour of silence before Kakashi spoke again. "The first mission is a bandit elimination mission. I decided that we should get this out of the way now so that there are no problems later. The client has requested that the bandits be eliminated, not captured. As such, no one leaves the camp alive except for anyone they may have kidnapped. This will be your first kill, so I will not hold it against you if you fall apart, but try to hold off until after the mission is finished," Kakashi said. Normally he wouldn't have been so blunt, but a part of him had a feeling that only Hinata would be making her first kill today. The rest of the trip was made in silence, and it didn't take very long for the group to reach the client's village. A brief exchange with Tsubasa revealed nothing new about the mission other than the fact that the bandits had kidnapped several young girls 3 days prior. While it only made it more difficult to be able to attack freely, it also meant that he would be able to assess his team's overall stealth in the field instead of tame exercises. "Alright, since Tsubasa had no idea where to find the bandits, we will have to look ourselves. Thankfully the Byakugan and my nose will be able to find them swiftly. Hinata, if you would?" Kakashi said to the formerly shy heiress. Nodding and activating her dojutsu, she quickly scanned the surrounding areas. 7 miles north-northeast, she said after a few moments. Nodding, the team headed out once again. "We will try to take as many out as possible with stealth. The last thing we need is one of them using one of the girls as a shield or hostage. If our cover is blown, make sure to try and get as many as you can before they try it. Your shadow clones will be invaluable to this operation. We'll be able to eliminate a lot of them in less time. Just remember, regardless of whatever you see or hear, you must remain calm and keep a clear head." Kakashi informed them before they fell into silence once again to prevent the bandits from overhearing any conversation that they might have. As soon as the camp came into view, Kakashi and the genin immediately began to look for the kidnapped girls while taking note of the visible amount of bandits. Hinata used her Byakugans to look for scouts that may not visible and their exact locations. 30 bandits. 3 hostages in southern tent unharmed from what I can see. 10 scouts keeping perimeter, keeping just out of sight of the camp. The one under us is sleeping. Possible shinobi in northern tent. Hinata signed to the others. The other 3 nodded and then split up to try and take the guards out first. Kakashi was swift and efficient, dispatching 4 of the guards before they could react. His experience was what made it easy, and as he was hiding the last body in the shrubbery, he wondered how his genin were doing. After splitting up, Hinata took up watch at a distance and notched an arrow onto her bow. If there was any time to put her practice to the test, it would be now. As soon as she let the first arrow fly, she notched a second and released that one just as quickly as the first, using her Byakugans to help and pinpoint the enemy. Both arrows hit their marks, going straight through the back of their heads. Feeling a little bile rise up, she forced herself to calm down and beginning looking for any way to get to the hostages without being noticed. Sasuke also had no problems reading the guards on his end. After all, slitting the throat of a sleeping man was never hard. A kunai to the forehead was all it took to take out the other one. His mind kept going back to the possible shinobi that Hinata thought she saw. Granted, it could be a civilian with higher reserves, but had rarely happened outside of shinobi families. With their luck, it was a nuke nin and they were going to have another mission escalation on his hands. Why us? He thought to himself. Naruto wasn't impressed with his guards either. They unfortunately turned around before he could kill them, but then instead of raising the alarm, they just stood there looking at the kid that appeared out of nowhere with the headband. Rolling his eyes, he swung his glaive, removing both of their heads at the same time. Please tell me that they are not all this stupid, he whined mentally. He then made his way towards the camp. Realizing that they were not going to be able to lure the bandits out of the camp, Kakashi raised his hand and signaled for Hinata to release a volley of arrows into the camp. Meanwhile, inside of the camp, the bandits were lounging and complaining about the poor hauls that they had been getting. Why are we still raiding this area? There is nothing good here. One of them complained to their friend. Because that is what the boss wants, and whatever he wants he gets. You know that. Remember what happened to the last guy that complained? Came the reply. So why can't we have fun with the girls? Orders. They are not to be touched. I don't know though, it seems almost as if the boss wants shinobi to come after us. You idiot, why would he want us to get caught? Maybe he is planning to sell them to Gato or something. The man's reply was cut short as an arrow lodged itself in his throat and the area was engulfed in thick smoke. That arrow was the first of many to fall as Hinata used the shadow clone on her arrow as soon as she had loosed it. Of the 30 that remained in the camp, only 12 survived the barrage. As soon as the arrows stopped, 3 figures obscured from the smoke burst into the clearing and swiftly brought death with them. The whole episode lasted no more than 2 minutes. As the smoke cleared from the area, another figure could be seen as having joined the original 3. That was too easy, Naruto remarked. While they didn't voice, the rest of the team was thinking along the same lines. Well, my apologies for my men not being shinobi. Perhaps this will make it less boring? A voice rang out from the direction of the northern tent. A figure stepped out into the clearing and snickered at the shinobi, only to sweat drop as all 4 of them yawned. Great, you are Hachi from Iwagakure. You abandoned the village after failing to receive your Jonin promotion and was informed that your former Genin squad had all made Jonin already. Not much of a bounty on you either. It's almost as if the village doesn't care what happens to you. Naruto said through his yawn. Hachi growled at the blonde. How dare you speak down to him? You little, wait a minute, you look an awful lot like that damned yondaime of yours. Who the hell are you? He demanded. The resemblance was uncanny and he would never forget the face of the man that murdered his parents during the war. Naruto shrugged. Does it matter? You are going to die either way. He replied and then grinned at him. Tell me, why did you decide to just wait here and let your camp be discovered? None of your business. Hachi yelled, charging at the blonde only to receive a foot to the face as Sasuke knocked him away from the Rokudame. Glaring at the raven-haired boy, he raised his hands and started to weave hand seals. He was going to kill these Konoha trash one way or the other. He would kill the Yondaime look-alike and then they would have to let him back into the village.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.